Hello, in this short video, we are going to see how to utilize Redis for the caching needs of any microservice written on Spring Boot. So this application will be seeing H2, which is an in-memory data store, a relational data store, Java Persistence API, Redis, and some RESTful APIs and how it interacts. So those are the things which we are going to see. There is a client machine interacts, probably it uses a postman. With the help of postman, it interacts with the web service fetches the data either from the database or from the cache, depending on where it is. Okay, and why we put the data in the cache? So that the latency is reduced. So fetch from a database is always more time consuming, so thereby the cache is being utilized for fetching the data quickly and passing it back to the client. So this is the goal, and the Redis cache shall be sitting on a Docker. I'll show you how to do that, and yeah, that's the overall aim of this video. So let's start with some core concepts. So H2, like I said, it's a lightweight in-memory database. The second thing is Java Persistence API. So what is this Java Persistent API? Basically, it is a ORM, okay, object relational mapping. So what we do is in Java is object-oriented language. So for if in case we have to write OOPS programming, we have to write everything in terms of objects. And in the database world, everything is tables and relationships. So how we map the objects to the tables and their relationship, that is basically what is provisioned by JPA. Okay, when you see, you will come to know what exactly it does in more detail. Another very important thing to see is the repository pattern. So repository pattern is basically an abstraction pattern. So what it will do is you can have different implementations of how the database you are going to use. Today you want to use H2, tomorrow you may go to a SQL server, and day after tomorrow probably you want to go for a file store. So instead of having hard dependency on the database, you can utilize repository pattern so that the implementations can change. Okay, so you depend on abstractions and not the implementation. That is the principle with which this pattern works. Now let's move further. Docker, if you don't know Docker, there are multiple videos, but it is basically a containerization platform wherein everything which is required for that application to run is bundled, and it is isolated, and it is packaged in such a way that you can move to your different environments when the need is there. Okay, so all the version related problems are automatically sorted because you just take it and place it anywhere where you want to run it. Okay, so post this Redis cache, we already discussed this is the caching mechanism, and this is where we are by caching frequently excess data in memory. What Redis does is it avoids the number of requests made to the database, and as you know, database requests are always time consuming, and so you would have all the response good response times if in case you are using the Redis cache. Okay, now there are some attributes which are used in this program. I would show you that as well when I'm showing you the program, but the main important ones I'll quickly illustrate. Spring Boot application, indicating that it is a Spring Boot application, and as you know, it is a combination of add configuration, add enable auto configuration, and component scan. Basically this is for dependency injection. Okay, and auto configuration will automatically configure different dependencies which are there, and configuration will give you the beans which are there in the application. So then we have JPA attributes. So JPA, like I said, it is ORM. So entity, which table name you can give, ID, the primary key, the column, the one-to-one, the dependencies, all these things you can give. I'm not going to show you all these details to make it very simple. I'm not putting all these things there. Probably only an entity and ID and columns would be there in the example, but this is a good reference if in case you have to reference later for JPA. The other important thing is enable caching. So this is a mandate attribute which has to be put in this Spring Boot to have this caching enabled. Okay, and then we have three more attributes: cacheable, the thing which we want to cache, the cache put, adding something into the cache, and cache evict, basically cleaning up the cache. We will see this in the example which we are going to see. So JPA repository. So repository pattern we saw already. Okay, and it is helping us to do all the CRUD operations. There are 3 steps to doing it. So first thing is you will define your entity. Entity is basically the table, which is the DB table. Okay, the second thing which you will do is you will define your interface. Okay, this is the repository which you are defining here. And the final thing which you do is you would auto wire this repository across your classes, services, or controllers where you want to use this. Okay, so you auto wire, and the moment you do all these things, then you have the availability of these functions. Like for example, from the repository, you are able to fetch the ID. Okay, you are able to save the probably if there is a user object, you are able to save the user in the database. You are able to delete it by the ID. So all these are simplistic things we are going to see in the example as well. This is another important thing I'll show you again when we are seeing the example. This is one interface which we are using, command line runner. Okay, this is basically to execute some code after the application context has been loaded. I'll show you why this is important in this example just in a bit. So I am in the application now. As you can see, this is a simple Spring Boot application. First, I'll show you some dependencies. Like I said, JPA is one of the dependency. The Redis is another dependency. And this Spring Boot starter is another dependency. And H2 database is another dependency. So with these 4 dependencies, we are all set for the program. And let me show you the program now. So first thing is the Redis application. Okay, in the main file. So I was saying earlier that we are having this command line runner. Why we want to have this command line runner is basically to feed the data, to initialize the database. Because I'm using an in-memory database, the moment I close the application, the database gets killed and all these details are missing from the database immediately. So what is this database? So let's start from bottom up. So we have this book entity. Basically, we will be seeing it in the database as well. I'll show you in a bit. It has a primary key called ID, and this primary key is automatically created. The sequence is automatically generated for it. Then we have the name of the book. We have the pages of the book, and these are basically all the getters and setters. Okay, this is the first thing. Book repository. I showed you one example how to create a repository in JPA. So you just have to extend the JPA repository and this is done. Basically, it is all automatically linked and configured. So you don't have to do much things here. So we saw the Redis application already, but let's see. So here we are getting the book repository. Basically, we are auto wiring using the dependency injection to have this book repository available for the program. So that's what we are doing here. And then we run the Spring Boot application. Now with respect to attributes, so enable caching, like I was saying, this is mandated, and this is a Spring Boot application. So this is another attribute which is mandated for this application to run. Okay, then repository, I was telling you that add repository attribute is required for the repository, and for this one entity attribute is required. Okay, now the controller. So controller is the place, as you may be already knowing, in Spring Boot, controller is the place where we map our request mappings. Okay, which means what exactly should be hit if in case we are executing our APIs. So that's what comes in the controller. Again, we can see that we are auto wiring the book repository to get the book related, the database related functions available. Cacheable. So this is what I want to cache. And what I have done is that if the number of pages is less than 300, then only it should cache this book in the DB, in the Redis. In the Redis cache. So we will see that only those books which are less than 300. So basically we can have conditions. So whatever is being referred very, very often, that is what we want to cache. So that's what is indicated here in a very, very simplistic way. So what we do here is we are just getting the book which book we are getting, whatever ID has been provided, and we are just returning the book from the book repository. Okay, and like I showed you in the beginning, this is where the books are being added to the database. Okay, this is where the books gets added to the database. I'll show you in a bit. And then the other function is if you want to add a new book, or if in case you want to delete a book, you delete a book, and at the same time you remove it from the, you evict it from the cache as well. Okay, so these are the things which we are going to see now. Now I'm going to execute this program. So these are the commands which shall be utilized for the Docker. So this is for having this image from the container registry and running it locally. Okay, and this is the command which is for running the Redis CLI. Yeah, so for me it is already downloaded and running. Let me show you that. So you see that it is already running, so it's okay. The other command which we have to do is we have to have this also run, which is, this is not mandatory, this is required for seeing what is there in the cache. So let me not run it, it's not required right away. So let me start the program now. So I will start the program. What shall happen is that we should have the database, H2 database in memory, and we should have all these books which are there in here. They should be added in the database in the books table. Okay, so let's see where the database is started. So we can see this statement that H2 console is available. Let me show you the console and the database, and I'll show you the table also created inside the DB. First thing is I have to paste the URL. I pasted the URL. I do the test and I say connect, and I go inside this DB and I check the table is okay. So table is okay, we can see that. Now what I have to do is I have to leverage the controller. So in the controller, what all functionality is there? So the first functionality is to fetch the book. Okay, so get book. I'm just clearing this and let me do a get book now. So I did a get book for number 2. Okay, and it has pages 300. So I have this get book ID 2. This is the same statement which was here. I will do this again. Okay, and this time it did not print anything in the console. So if it did not print anything in the console, still it fetched me the data. What does it mean? It means that the data has been coming from the Redis cache. So we have this condition of 300, and if you see the book number 2, so book number 2 is basically 300. Okay, so it will be fetched from the cache. It is like it is not less than 300. If it was less than 300, so for example, let me fetch the book number 1. So I fetch the book number 1. I fetch it one time. Statement has come. I fetch it another time. A statement has come. So because of this condition, it is not going to the cache. Only for this condition meeting books, it is going to the cache. So I do 10 times also, it will fetch 10 times from the controller and the database, not from the cache. But if I make it 2, okay, it is going to not type the statement, it is going to get it from the cache. So now this is one thing. Let me add the other also 4 and 3. Okay, 3 is also, it is 550 pages, so it will only be fetched 1. It will always be fetched from the Redis cache, and this will be always, it will be fetched from the database. Okay, it is less than 300 pages. So this is now let us quickly see the Redis cache also, so you will be able to appreciate that how this data is sitting in the cache. So we had started the Docker, and the Docker the image name was this. Okay, container ID was this, and with this container ID, what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute Redis CLI command in the IT mode, interactive and TTY teletype command. So if I do this, I am here. Now if I do keys, so it will list all the keys which are there. So we can see that there are 2 books which were added, so which are here. And if I say get, So it will fetch me the first book, which is Panchatantra. Okay, so that is the internal serialization, but you can see this is a Panchatantra book. Okay, same thing if I do for a 4, you will see another book. No, 4 is not there, so you will not see anything, but 2, if you do, the ID 2 Chanakya Niti is also sitting in the data in the Redis. Okay, that's what we saw. Now what all other things are here? So the other thing is addition of a new book. Okay, so let me add a new book here. So add a new book. So what I'll do is, let's say book name, let's say butterfly effect, and let's say 200 pages. I send this and I get the detail that it has come in the database. So this is basically for adding. And if you see now, so let me do this keys again. So whatever book number 5 was added is sitting in the database as well, even though it does not, it's sitting in the Redis also, even though it does not meet the condition. Why so? Because here we are not checking any condition. We are just saying put it into the cache. Okay. The last thing which I'll show you is to delete the book. You give the book ID and delete it. So let's say book ID is 5, whatever butterfly effect I added, I want to delete that. So I do this and I say 5. Let's see in the database first. So 5 is gone. Okay, so what I have done here is basically I have done all entries equal to true. So which means that all the keys are removed from the Redis cache. So that is what has been performed also. Like we can see here, the keys are, nothing is there. Okay, so hope you like this small tutorial. So we were able to appreciate how to write a Spring Boot web service, Spring Boot REST service, how to have the data cached into the Redis cache, how to fetch the data, how to evict the cache, how to put new items in the cache, and how to have these attributes leverage for all these different needs which we have with the application. Okay, I would put this in the Git also, the source code, and you can use it. Thank you so much. Bye.